the user to enter the data. If you want to make the user like and to entering the data, okay, then one form is required. So we created one form. Okay, this is our form. Okay, this one we created by using what? By using React. That one is completed. At the time of clicking on the submit button, okay, you already taken the data from each and every input control by using on change. Can anyone tell how many ways we can take the data from the input controls? How many ways we can take the data from the input controls? Okay, one is like ref. Another one is like create ref method. You can create one reference and add that reference to one input control. That is also works. Another one is like on change. By using on change also, if you made any change based on that changes, okay, you can take that changes and keep somewhere wherever you want. On change is the event. That event is going to trigger whenever you made any change on this particular text box or radio button or checkbox, whatever it is. So the changes is nothing but you enter some data or you delete some data from the text box. That is also change. Okay, you selected, you unselected in the checkbox. That is also change. Okay, the radio button is there. You selected, unselected. That is also one change. Like this. If you made any change, my on change event is going to trigger. Okay, now we can differentiate based on this particular form data. Okay, how many ways we can take the data from the form means by using ref and by using on change. You can say whenever if you use like a ref to take the data inside your component, that components we can say like a uncontrolled components. That particular way we say like uncontrolled component means okay, that references and everything is not controlled by you people. That's like a DOM inside your HTML, inside your JSX. Just you put like ref equals to something, the reference and everything is created by React itself. But if you take like on change, okay, that form is controlled by you. If you made any change, okay, that particular event or triggered on which element, that event object you taken, okay, and then you can take the event or target, the target element you can take in, and then you can take the data and you wherever you want you can keep it. Everything is controlled by you. So by using on change, if you are trying to take the data from the form, that type of components we can say like a controlled components. By using ref, if you want to take, by using the reference, if you want to take the data from the form, that type of components we can say like a uncontrolled components. Now tell me, our form is like controlled or uncontrolled? Our form is like a controlled component or not? Why? Because I'm using on change event to take the data or not. Okay, done. That part already completed, right? That part already completed. See here, while running, it asks one question like what? Okay, already 3000 port number is like occupied by some other person. Do you want me to run in another one? Okay, my form. This is my n2n.jsx. Yes, this is the form. I used like on change event. That event triggered if you made any changes. So that this is my function, handler function, listener function. Okay, the listener function take one argument. Last argument is like event object. Okay, event or target is nothing but that on change event triggered on which element. That is your event or target element. From this target element, you can take the name and value. Once you have the key and value, you can insert this data inside my data object or not. Now at the time of clicking on the button, yes, this is my data object. Now this data object is nothing but this form data to whom you have to send it. You have your server or not. You have to send your Node.js application or not. So that can we work on the Node.js application now? Yes, so far, whatever the data from the form, yeah, you taken the data, you prepared one JSON object. You know why we go for JSON object instead of sending, okay, one input control data, another input control data, okay, next one, like this. For example, 10 input controls are there. If you send the data individually, first one, second one, third one, like this, to my server, okay, how many requests you have to send? Like 10 requests you have to send it or not? It's not a recommended one. Why? Because my client is like a browser, my server is running out of your browser somewhere in the internet, some cloud, okay, cloud area. Now, if you send like 10 requests, okay, it's like increase the burden on your server or not? Okay, not only you, right? Remaining people also just they are going to send the request to the server or not? So all requests hit only one time on the server, then that my server may be crashed or my server may be give the response back not it takes some more time to give the response back. There has some lag also, you can get it. So that is totally completely okay affected on your performance or not, completely affected on your performance or not. So that instead of sending like the 10 requests, just create one JSON object and give this JSON object to my server. Okay, tell to him, hey, I'm sending one JSON object. From this JSON object, you can take the data, and that data you can insert in the database like this. You can say. So how you can say, will tell. Now, can anyone tell how you can communicate? How you can communicate my client with my server side program? So how my client is going to communicate with the server? Can anyone? How my client is going to communicate with the server? By using an Ajax. By using an Ajax technology. Okay, it's a technique. It's not technology. It's a technique. Okay, by using this Ajax, we can send the request to the server. Okay, by using Ajax only, we can receive the response from the server. Okay, my client and server communication happened in the client side by using what? Ajax or not. Now, how to handle Ajax? Okay, that one is first question. How to handle Ajax? How many ways? As part of our course, we are going to discuss this XML HTTP request is one thing. That's the basic JavaScript Ajax technique. Another one is like fetch. This is also basic JavaScript one. These two are given by JavaScript people only. The next one is like one of the library called as jQuery. Another one is like one of the library called as AnJS one. For now, I want to introduce XML HTTP request as well as fetch. Okay, these two we are going to cover as part of this example. Okay, in future also we are going to work with MongoDB. Then that time we are going to work with jQuery and AnJS one. So that just keep hold these two. Okay, first concentrate on these two. These two. Okay, by using XML HTTP request, how we can send the request to the server. Okay, that one we'll see. That one we'll see. Okay, first of all, come to my Node.js one. Yesterday you created your Node application. Can anyone tell how you created your Node application? Can anyone? How you created your Node application? If you want to get the skeleton, how we can get it? By using an Express framework or not? By using an Express framework. By default, Express is not there in your machine. What we have to do? You have to run one command called as a npm install -g. Okay, Express. Okay, already I given that information to you inside this. Okay, npm install. First, you have to install the node. Already node is there. npm install -g express. npm install -g express generator. Once it is done, okay, go to your workspace folder and create one folder for your node MySQL. Okay, open the command prompt in that particular folder and type express. Then that time it's going to give this particular skeleton. After that, what immediately you have to do? Okay, I have the package.json is there. The package.json contains some dependencies. I should have to download the dependencies. So that what we have to do is you have to run npm install command or not. Once you get the skeleton, okay, you have to run npm install command. Run npm install. Now, once you run npm install command, can anyone tell what my npm install command is going to do? That one you know. My npm install command, just it is looking for the package.json file. Okay, inside the package.json file, it's going to looking for dependencies or dev dependencies properties. Okay, if the dependencies and dev dependencies properties are there, whatever the libraries you registered in that particular area, that libraries are going to download into your application inside one of the folder called as a node_modules folder. That is the thing you should have to do. So can we open this application now? Okay, I want to open this application. Okay, see this. This is your client application. Okay, this is a Visual Studio Code. This is my client application. So can we open one more window for my server side application? Okay, now come here. Now, okay, file, open folder, go to our node 1. Okay, just wait. It is no. Yeah, open folder, my classes only. And in my classes, our folder is what? Okay, our folder is this one. Okay, inside this node MySQL folder is there, right? Okay, that. And one more thing, okay, Sunday's class video I added here. Okay, Sunday's class video, this is the one. Okay, in the content.txt file is there, right? Inside the content.txt file, you can find this video. Okay, 8 Sunday's class video. Just you can go through this. Somebody asked. Now come here. This is your node.mysql. Yeah, I have an application is there. If you want to work with this application, first of all, you should have to run your application or not. Okay, if it is like a no, if it is like a React one, you know how to run that application. npm start is the command. If it is like a Node application, then that time how we can run, we'll see that one. That is our first agenda. Okay, how to run our Node application. Okay, Node Express, by using Express framework, we created a Node application. That Node application I want to run it. How we can run it? Very simple. Now, each and every folder you should know. Okay, regarding each and every folder, what is the purpose? Okay, first one, bin. Can anyone tell about the bin? If I open the bin, there has one file is there, www file. Okay, this particular bin folder completely we are going to use at the time of deployment. At the time of deployment, okay, which port number you want to use, all these things. If you want to customize, then the time you can use this bin folder. Okay, so development mode, there is no need to consider this particular folder. Just leave it for now. Just leave it for now. Deployment, you know, right? Moving this code to your server memory. Node modules folder, next one. You know node modules folder, right? Node modules folder purpose is what? Just it is maintaining all your libraries or not. Okay, done. That one you know. The next one is like a public folder. If you see this public folder, okay, just spell out images, JavaScripts, and style sheets. Can anyone tell? JavaScript, images, style sheets, which is related to server-side programming or client-side programming. Style sheets, CSS, where you can write the CSS. Most of the times we are going to write in the client side or not. My node application, okay, not only for the server side, we can use like a client also. But do you want me to use this node application in this context as a client or server? Do you want me to use like a client? Already my client application you developed by using React. I don't want to use like a client. Okay, I want to use like what, server side application or not. If it is like a server side application, the style sheets, JavaScript, images, I don't want to touch. So for now, just leave it, no problem at all. For now, just leave it. Okay, public also there is no need to touch. The next one is like views. If you observe here, routes also there. Okay, just hold up. Okay, views are there. In your node application, if you want to create a template, in React, if you want to create a template by using components, it will happen. Okay, in the component content, how you can create by using JSX or not. Same like this here also. My node application, we can use like a client as well as server. If you want to create a template here, we are going to use like a __. file. See this, okay, __, files, h1, h2, pre. Okay, these all are like a tags or not. This is like one type of different syntax. Now, do you want me to prepare the template in React in your Node.js? I'm not using like a client, right? Okay, already my client side part done by React. Okay, so that I want to use only for the server side application. This node one. Okay, I don't want to use like a client. So that this templates and everything is not required for me. Just leave it. The next one is like a routes folder is there. This is our folder. This is the area we have to work. Okay, this is the area we need to work. So keep this one. Which work we have to do? We'll see that one later. Okay, routes one. So far, okay, bin folder there is no need to touch. Node modules you no need to touch. Public no need to touch. Views no need to touch. Just we have to work on what? Routes folder. The next one is like app.js. Okay, package.json nothing required. Package log. Okay, there is no need to touch also. Package.json, if any new library is required, then we can add it. Okay, but here there is no need to write any code or something. So finally, you can conclude. Okay, you should have to work on. One is like app.js, another one is like routes folder or not. Okay, if you see this app.js, you can observe one thing. Say this. Yeah, Express is there. Okay, now here, views folder is there, public folder is there, routes folder files, how many is there? That one is there. Okay, now any other things are there? Any other things? Okay, no. If you see this one, if you see this app.js, whatever my node application contains, okay, my node application contains multiple files and folders. Whatever my node application contains, all these files and folders register with the app.js or not. Register with the app.js or not. So that my app.js, we can say like what, application file or root file or not. Why? Because in your application, what things are there? All are registered within the app.js. This is all the proof. Okay, direct name views. Space contains what? All are set here. Okay, public folder contains what? All are set here. Okay, my routes folder contains what? All are set here. Like this, each and everything registered within the app.js or not. So that we can say like my app.js is like what, root file or not. So far, I didn't write a single line of code also. Just I'm explaining what they given. Okay, So that my app.js is like what? It's a root file or not? It's a root file. So I want to run your application. If you want to run your application, okay, which file you want me to run? This one or this one or this one or this one? I don't know. Okay, but we already see this one app.js. If you say already conclude like what my app.js contains what all your application. Okay, my application contains whatever the files. All those files are registered within the app.js or not. That means if you run your app.js file, it means running your application or not. You're running your application or not. Why? Why means my app.js is not a single file. It includes what? All your files and folders of your application or not. So if you run your root file app.js, it means what? Yes, you are running your application or not. Agreed or not? Yes or no? So that finally you can say like what? My app.js is the root file. If you run this JS file, okay, it means you are running your node application. So tell me how you can run this file, one JS file, how you can run it. Can anyone guess? How many ways we can use one JS file? If I given one JS file, okay, that has some functionality, how we can get that functionality? Can anyone? Okay, very simple thing. Two ways we can use your JS file. One is like loading. One is like loading. Another one is like, okay, another one is like running. Another one is like running. Loading is nothing but if you want to load, one more file is required to load. Okay, which file? One HTML file or something. One is like script source equals to, okay, script source equals to your app.js. Like this, you can write it or not. Script. Yes or no? Okay, another one is like, you can say like import and export also. Okay, import and export. Okay, then understand? That particular file has to export something and then another file is required to import or not. Here to load also, one more file is required. One more file is required. File is required. Okay, to import also, one more file is required or not? One more file is required. But in this case, if you observe, I don't want this app.js run or load in another file. Individually, this file has to run or not. Individually, this file has to run. Okay, then the time I can say like, yes, my application is running. There is no files to load this app.js in this case. There is no files to load your app.js. Then the time how we can run your app.js, how we can run your individual file means we can run our file by using node command. By using node command, how we can run your file? Okay, simple example I will show you. Okay, come on. Now come here. Okay, just create one simple file. Okay, one file you can create. Okay, after that we can remove test.js. Inside this test.js, I'm going to write like one function f1. Okay, one function f1. Okay, my console.log of f1 call. Okay, now I want to call this one. Yes, this is my test.js. I want to run this one, not loading. If you want to load, one HTML file required or another JS file is required like this, but it is only the file I want to run it. How we can run this? By using node, I can run this file. See, I am in node MySQL, so that we can write like node, which file you want to forget test. Okay, yeah, see this, my test file, f1 he called, okay, it's nothing but what is my output, f1 called is my output or not, f1 called is my output or not. Like this, you can run one JS file. Like this, you can run one JS file. Yes, you can use the JS file in multiple ways. One is like loading, like script source or something. Another one is like import and use it. Okay. Then that time also you can get that particular functionality. In this case, some external files are required to load as well as to import. Okay. But running, no external file, nothing is required. Directly, you can run your file or not. So that here, no test, I can run it or not. Same like this. Which file you want me to run? Which file you want me to run? Can anyone tell? I want to run my app.js file or not. So you should have to run like this or not. Node app. Okay. You are running my node app. It means what? What it means? Yes, you are running your server-side application. Server-side application. Now see, if you run this one, see, again it comes to my normal, okay, command prompt area or not, command prompt location or not. That means just it started and stopped. If my server application you started and stopped, then that time my request is going to received by the server or not received. It's not able to receive. My server should up and run 24 by 7 or not. 24 by 7 my server should up and run or not. Now here you run your application by using Node app, but it started and stopped. And stopped. See, it's coming like a normal location or not by command prompt. Okay, once my server started and stopped, when my client is going to send a request, do you know? Okay, I don't know, right? Okay, whenever my client want, okay, then only he open the browser, he's going to send the request to the server. He's going to send the request to the server. Exactly, there is no time, nothing. So that, okay, in this case, if you observe, my server should up and running always or not. My server should always up and running or not. So if you want to run your node application on server, okay, then in this particular application, okay, in this particular application, you have to write some piece of code, which code, okay, where you want me to run, and which port number you want me to run. Those two things you have to specify. Why? Because my node application I want to run in my local machine only, is nothing but localhost. Okay, it's take my local machine only. And then in my local machine, there is multiple applications are going to run. One is like 3000 port number, my client application, React is going to run. 3001, one more React application is going to run. 3306, my MySQL server is running. Okay, now for this particular node application, you have to give one more port number or not in my mission. Okay, so that can we give one more port number. Now I am going to write one simple line of code. So far I didn't write one single line also. Okay, now I am going to write. Okay, now he created one application. Okay, by using which framework? Express framework. This Express is coming from where? Package.json. Package.json. See this. Okay. Now I'm going to write. What is this required? I will tell. Okay, don't worry about that one. Okay, come on. How you can write it? App.listen is the method. Listen. App.listen. Okay, here you can use the port number. Okay, 2020 is my port number. 2020 is my port number. After that, just you can write like one console message. Okay, console.log of. Okay, server node app is running in localhost. Okay, with 2020 port number. Okay, now can you come here? Can I run the node app now? Yeah, so this node app is running localhost 2020. Okay, localhost with 2020 port number. See again, my command from not come to the next same location. See, still it is like what? It's like, okay, still it's like in the running mode or not. It is like a running mode. Then that time, can you check is it really running your application in 2020 port number or not? How we can? Localhost. What is my port number? 2020. Any port number you can use, which is not used. Okay, localhost 2020 is my port number or not? If you observe here, we have to show like just wait. My app is running right. Yeah, so this Express. Welcome to Express. Welcome to Express. Got it or not? Welcome to Express. Now if you observe here, just stop your server. How you can stop your server? Now come to this particular one. But this is my normal MySQL, right? Okay, my app is running on localhost 2020. Now you're trying to check, right? So that all these things are loading. Okay, logged. These are the logs we can say. These are the logs. Okay, three times you open this localhost 2020 port number. So that is logged like this. Now, if you want to stop, Control C. Now see, my command from come to the same location or not. Now my application is not running. If it is not running, still you are trying to access, then the time it should have to do like not reachable, site not reachable, like that. Now if you come here, say this. Yeah, the site cannot be reached or not. So that you can conclude one sentence like what? Okay, if you want to run your application, node application in one port number, okay, whatever you want, you can give that port number and run your app.js. How you can? App like this. Yes. Now tell me. Now tell me. In the cloud, there has an application is there. If you want to communicate with the application within the cloud, how we can communicate generally? How we can communicate? Okay, where that application deployed, that particular application address is required or not. In the cloud, address is nothing but what? Your URL only or not. Your URL only or not. So that if you come here, this is React application, which is running localhost 3001 port number. And this is your node application, which is running where? Within my localhost only. What is my URL? My URL for now localhost. In future, okay, instead of my mission, okay, I'm going to deploy that one into another mission. Then that time we are going to give that particular mission address or not. Whatever it is, you have to give that URL or not. So that here my localhost 2020 is my port number or not. Localhost 2020 is my port number or not. HTTP is the protocol. So that if this particular person who client want to communicate with this particular server, okay, where is my server? How you know that one? My server is running on which port number? In my localhost 2020 is the port number or not. If my client server person don't know about this particular port, okay, how he is going to communicate? Okay, if you want to find one person, okay, that person address is required or not. Same like this. Okay, this particular person, React 3001 port number, one application is running. That person is going to looking for what? Node application. Okay, where my node application is running, that particular application path or URL is required, address is required or not. So that this HTTP localhost 2020, okay, my node application is running. So that if you want to communicate, can you use this URL like this? You have to tell or not. To whom you have to tell? You have to tell to my client or not. Who want to communicate with the server? My client only, right? Okay, that person only should know about this particular address URL or not. Who knows about the URL? Can anyone tell? This URL, port number, and everything is prepared by whom? My server application is running by server-side developer. So that my server-side developer should have to share your server application running details. Okay, server application running URL to my client or not. So the first part, if you want to send a request to the server, where my server is running, the server URL is required or not. So what is my server URL? HTTP localhost 2020 is my URL. Okay, perfect. I have that URL. Okay, that URL shared with my client side developer. Who? My server side guy. Okay. Now my request comes to where? If you know this URL, just my request comes to my node application. Up to here only it can travel or not. Why? Because localhost 2020. Okay, localhost 2020. Here itself is running. My node application is running. Okay. From here, why we send the request? Generally, why we send the request? Okay. I need some work. I have some work with this particular server side guy. Okay, which work? Okay, each and every request has their own purpose. In this case, I want to register the question. I want to insert the questions or not. Okay, in the next requirement, I want to register one student. In the next requirement, I want to register one student C. All these different requirements are there within the database or not. I want to do all these operations within the database only. When you go with Node.js, when you go with server-side application, if you have some work with the database, then only we can go with the node application or not. Then only we can go with the node application. Okay, perfect. Now, my request, if you know localhost 2020, this URL, how much my request can travel, how much distance it can travel, just my request come to my client to server, my server address, where my server is running, localhost 2020. Okay, within the server, within the node application, we are going to write like multiple functionalities or not. You can write like multiple functionalities based on your requirement. One functionality, I want to work with questions table. Another functionality, I want to work with registration table. Like this, multiple tables. Okay, multiple functionalities are there. Why we go for server-side technology? Already you know that one. If you want to do some work with the database, so that I want to do some work, okay, with questions table, so that work, okay, that means that piece of code that relates the functionality, I'm going to write your within one file called as a questions.js. This is my file. Another one, I want to do some work. I want to write some functionality for my registration table, so that naming convention, registration.js, like this, registration.js. Like this, two files I created for now. Why? Because here I mentioned like two tables, right? So that I created like two files. For example, in your database 10 tables are there. Yes, you can create 10 files, or you can create only one file. You can write all these things within the same file. But I need a clean separation. Questions table related functionality I want to write inside the question.js. Registration table related functionality I want to write inside the registration.js. Okay, another table, another file. Like this, different files I want to create. Otherwise, I don't want to create. I want to write everything in a single file. Yes, you can write it, no problem. But it's not a good practice. That's it. Okay. Now our goal is what? I want to insert a question in the questions table, so that my functionality you should have to write where in the questions.js table or not. So inside this questions.js, which type of functionality you want me to write? Which type of functionality? Requirement, based on your requirement. My requirement is like insert question information. Okay, insert question data. This is the one. Question option 1, option 2, like this. Insert question information. Okay, question. Insert a question. So that you have to write some functionalities, nothing but you have to write some set of statements, right? Where we can write the statements inside a file. Inside a file. Inside a file where we can write inside a function or not. Yes or no? One functionality you want to write, then the time set of statements are required. The statements we can write where? It's in the function or not. Just we can write one function. See, generally I'm going to write okay function. So the syntax something different. Just we can write okay outlines function. Okay, insert or save question. I want to save one question. This is my function and this is my functionality I want to write. Okay, same like this. One more functionality also there. Function, you saved all questions, right? If you want to write the test, you should have to get the questions or not. Get questions. This is one more functionality. Like this, how many methods you can write? Based on your requirement, you can write any number of methods or not. Now, registration.js is there. Okay, I want to register a student. So that here I want to write one function like register student. This is one functionality. Okay, one student left my school, so that I want to delete his details. So that function delete. Yes, delete student. This is one more functionality. Okay, the next one is like the student details I want to update. So that function update st. It is one more functionality. Like this, any number of functionalities you can write which is related to registration table or not in the register.js. Okay, you can say one thing. These three functions also I want to write in the questions.js. Yes, you can write it, no problem at all. But I need the clean separation. These functionalities belongs to questions table. These functionalities are belongs to registration table. Now the thing is, at the time of clicking on the submit button, your request should have to go to. Your request should have to hit which method? There are 5 methods are there. Which method my request should have to hit at the time of clicking on the submit button? Can anyone? Which method it should have to hit? Okay, it should have to hit my save question method or not. General save question method or not. Why? Because my functionality is that one. Okay, now how my client-side person knows about this particular method? Okay, this guy is like a client-side developer. This guy is like a server-side developer. Okay, think both are like different developers. In this case, you only the client-side developer, you only the server-side guy, you only the database guy. Okay, think sometimes my client-side person is different, my server-side guy is going to different. Then the time is my client-side developer by default knows about this particular method. This method created by whom? Server-side person. Okay, hit by whom? Used by whom? Client-side person. If you want to use, first of all, you should have to go there and you should have to call that method or not. If you want to call, first of all, information is required, right? That method information is required, right? Who created method? Server-side guy. So that my client-side person don't know about that particular method or not. So my server-side person has to give that information to my client-side guy or not. Then only my client-side guy is going to send the request to the server. So that my URL is there, right? That URL built by the server-side person and given to my client-side guy to send the request to the server. So that you can build URL. See, first, my request comes to node application. from my node application, which file my request has to go? Which file my request has to go? This function, if you want to hit, my request has to go to questions.js or registration.js. My request has to go to next one, questions.js or not. This is the next level. Okay, next level traveling. Okay, now it is travel to this file. Now within this file, multiple functionalities are there again. Okay, which function you want me to hit? You should have to hit this function or not. Say this. You should have to hit this function or not. Done. Okay. Now at the time of clicking on the submit button, my request has to come to my node application to question.js file, question.js file to save question function or not. So my request has to come to node application is nothing but where my node application is running, localhost 2020. Perfect. After that, okay, my request should have to come to questions.js, right? So that my questions.js, we are going to specify one path for this particular file. What is the path? You can give any name. Okay, how we can specify? I will tell. Okay, this is my path for questions table. Okay, questions.js file. This is the path for my registration.js file. So that if you want to come to my questions.js, what is my URL here? Localhost 2020/UUE or not. Done. Understand or not? So if I give this one to my client, how much he can travel? He can come to localhost 2020 is nothing but your node server to question.js. He can come. Okay, now here, my client side person request is here now. Which functionality, which function you want me to get? Save question or not? For this particular functionality also, can we give one more part? Okay, save UUE. This is the path for this particular function. So now the full-fledged path is like what? Save UUE or not? Say this. This is the URL for this particular function. Okay, for this particular function or not. To hit this particular function, you should have to use this URL or not. Who want to hit this function? Client. So that this URL has to share it with what? Shared with my client side person or not. So if I give this URL, my client side person is going to send the request by using an AJAX or not. Yes or no? So my request comes to localhost 2020 is nothing but node to QUE is nothing but questions.js. From there, save questions. Okay, so that here the next one, this function is going to execute or not. If anybody use this URL to hit, okay, anybody use this URL to send the request, okay, this particular method is going to execute or not. So how this particular client side person know about this URL? By default, you don't know. My server side guy has to share this URL with my client side person or not. My server side guy has to share this URL with client side person or not. Once my client side person get that URL, okay, he use that URL to send the request by using what? AJAX or not. So my question is, if you want to send the AJAX request, what mandatory input is required? If you want to send the AJAX, if you want to send the request to the server, what mandatory input is required? URL is required or not? Okay, address is required or not? If the URL is not there, to whom you want me to send the request? URL is required or not? So if you want to send one AJAX request, see, it's not a React one. It's not specific to React one. It is common for any technology. Okay, React, Angular, JavaScript, or Backbone, or Express.js, or anything. Okay, my server side, Node, Java, Python, anything. This is only the flow. Okay, as a client side developer, if you want to send the request to the server, what mandatory input is required? Means URL is required or not. If URL is not there, then the time you are not able to send the request to the server. Okay, with this URL, any other mandatory things are required? Means yes, one more mandatory thing is required. That is called as a request method. That is called as what? Request method. This request method also required. Request method. Okay, these two are the mandatory inputs. Request method is required. Okay, then request method. How my client side person knows about that one? Means again, my request method is not decided by the client side guy. My request method is decided by that server side person only. Okay, how my server side person is going to decide that request method? Means okay, most of times we are using these request methods. Get is there, post is there, put is there, delete is there, up is on there, trace is there. Like these multiple request methods are there. Most of the times we are using like these 4 request methods. Okay, how of these request methods are used by server side guy, means based on your functionality, based on your functionality. Okay, which functionality you are doing on this particular database table, based on that one we are going to use these methods. Okay, now come on, first functionality is this one, right? Okay, save question. Save question is nothing but which type of functionality we are going to write. You insert a new question inside this questions table or not. You saved a new question inside the questions table or not. If you insert a new record, then that time most of the times we are going to use like a post request method. Post is nothing but insert a new record in your table. Insert a new record in your table. The next one functionality is what? Get questions. Okay, now tell me, already questions are there. This is my URL. Okay, this is my URL. My request method is what? Here you are not inserting. Okay, just you are retrieving, right? Then that time we are going to use like get method. Okay, your operation is like what? Okay, retrieving the data from the table. Get method. Here register student. Register student. Your URL you can put like REGSTD. Okay, what is the method? Register student. A new student we are going to register. Is nothing but a new record we are going to add within the table. Then we can go to what? Post request. Okay, delete student. Okay, one student left your school, then that time you should have to delete them. Okay, then how we can fix? Okay, we have the method called as the delete is the method. Delete is the method. Update the student is nothing but already record is there. Okay, I want to update that record instead of new record insertion or deleting the record. Okay, it's not. Okay, just update the record. Then that time. Okay, update std. The method is like a put is the method. Based on the functionality, my server side guy only decide about your method. Okay, based on your functionality, so that my URL and request method built by whom? My URL and my request method built by whom? My URL and request method built by the client or server side guy. My URL and request method built by server side guy. Okay, given to whom? Given to whom? Given to whom? Given to my client side person or not? Okay, what my client side person is going to do? By using that URL and method, okay, he is going to send the request to the server or not? He is going to send the request to the server or not? If you want to send the request to the server, how my client is going to send the request to the server? By using Ajax technique or not? By using an Ajax or not? So that finally you can conclude one statement like, if you want to send an Ajax request, anything, okay, if you want to send a request to the server, what mandatory inputs are required? What mandatory inputs are required? Mandatory inputs are required. If you want to send a request to server, what mandatory inputs are required? Okay, the URL is one, another one is like what? My request method is another one or not? These two are the mandatory inputs if you want to send a request to the server. Super good. Okay, now these two are like a mandatory. These two are like a mandatory. Sometimes as part of request, we are going to send the data also or not. We are going to send the data also or not. Data also or not, based on your functionality. Now, 5 functions are there, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Within these 5 functions, which functions requires data from, can anyone tell? Which functions requires the data from the client? You know the functionality, right? Which functions requires the data from the client? Okay, first one, save question is required. Okay, another one is like register student is required. The next one is like delete student is required. The next one is like update student is required. These 4, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 require some data from the client or not. How my client is going to send the data to my server? How my client is going to send the data to the server? Okay, by communicating one, right? Okay, how my client is going to communicate with the server? Through request only or not? So as part of request only, sometimes based on your requirement, we have to pass the data also or not. As part of request, sometimes we need to pass the data. For get questions, there is no need to pass the data or not. Get questions, there is no need to pass the data. Why? Because all the questions I want, that's it. For get questions, there is no need to pass the data. Understand or not? So if you want to send the request to server, from my client to server, my client requests 2 mandatory inputs. One is URL, another one is like method, request method, that one we can say. The next one is like data, it's an optional one based on your requirement or not. Based on your requirement. Then up to okay or not. Okay. Now application is ready. So can we create some files here? One is like questions.js, another one is like registration.js. Can we create the files? Okay, where you want me to write that code means already I told you. Beginning is not required, node mode is not required, public not required, views not required, only routes and app.js only required. So that my routes folder we are going to use to create your files. So how many files you want me to create based on your requirement? 2 files. One is like questions.js. Another one is like what? Another one is like what? Registration.js. Now registration is not required for me. Just we added that one. Okay. Here there is no registration table, nothing. Okay, so that questions.js I created. Once you created the questions.js, okay, for that particular file, you should have to specify the path or not. You should have to specify the path or not. If the path is not specified, then how my request comes to that particular file? You should have to specify the path or not. So how I can specify the path for this particular file? It's like very simple thing. Okay, app.js file contains what? Contains what? All your files and folders inside this app.js file or not? All your files and folders are registered here or not? So that here my index.js and users also register somewhere. See this index.js and users also register or not? Same like this, you added one more. So that can we add that one now? Okay, any new file you added, that should be registered with app.js. Why? Because my app.js only running. If you want to run your question.js, that should be registered with what? App.js or not. So how we can register? Just register, get that file. Before that, okay, I want to discuss about the required. What is this required? Very simple. Now come here. I have one file is there, 1.js. I have one more file is there, 2.js. Okay, both 1.js and 2.js are inside one of the folder called as a my folder. Both are within the same one. Now come here. Now inside this, I have one function is there, simple functionality. Function here. Okay, here 2.js is there. Inside my function F2. Okay, here return 10 is there. Okay, here return 10 plus whatever this value is there, that value I want. Okay, for example, x plus whatever the value is there. Okay, that value I want here. Okay, then how we can get it? I have 1.js and 2.js. Okay, this particular function has some value. That value I want in the 1.js function. Okay, so how we can? Both are like different files. Then how we can? By using export and imports or not. So first of all, this particular function has some data. So can we export that data from here? Okay, then the time this guy is going to import it or not. So how we can? Okay, how many ways we can export? Export default. Yep, yes. Now once you export it here, can we import here? How we can import it? Import from where? F2. From which file? From which file you want me to import? Same folder, 2.js file or not? Now can anyone tell what is the type of this F2? Whatever you exported, that is only imported. So exported type is what? F2 is a function type. So that my imported type is like function only. So if it is like a function, can we call it? Yes. Like this, we can export and import the things or not. It's like ES6 syntax. ES6 below, if you want the same functionality, then the time how I can export and how I can import means, if you want to export, then the time the syntax is like this: module.exports equals to F2. If you want to import it, require is the method. Require, from which method you want, you required some details, require some functionality from which method? Okay, from this particular one or not? From this particular one, I require some information or not? Now, my require is the method. It returns me whatever this method is going to export that one is going to return. So that just you can write like what is going to return. It's going to return F2 only or not. This one, my export import is equals to this one, module.export, and my import one is equals to require. Require something from this particular path, whatever he exported, that one I hold with what? One variable or not. Same thing if you come here, see this. Require. Okay, my node application skeleton they created by using ES6 below. Okay, not ES6. so that they are using like require. I'm also use the same thing. There is no problem at all. Okay, require something HTTPRS. Can anyone tell? There is no path, nothing. Then the time that is coming from where? Node modules folder or not? If you not find like dot, okay, dot or something, okay, then the time you can say like what? That is coming from node modules. The best example you can come here. See, import React. Okay, if you see this one here, there is no dot or dot like this. Directly you return this particular library name or not? Directly you written is nothing but that is coming from node modules. If you put like a relative path like dot or dot, that is your path. Okay, out of node modules. So by seeing this one, you can understand. Require, okay, there is no relative path, there is no dots, nothing. So all are coming from where? HTTP errors, express, path, cookies, margin, all are coming from where? All are you exported from? Okay, all are you imported from where? Node modules or not? Okay, if you want the proof, HTTP errors, express, all these things you can find in the package.json, express, HTTP errors, okay, all these things are there or not there. Here dot is there, is nothing but what? Out of your node modules, so that my questions inside the node modules or out of node modules? Out of node modules, so that can be imported. Okay, if you want to import something, first of all, you should have to export something here or not. So how you can export? By using module.export or not? By using module.export. For that purpose, you should have to write some piece of code. What is that code? Where my express equals to require express. Okay, if you want to write that endpoints, write the functionality, this is the skill set. Where my router equals to express dot router is the method. Router is the method. Here you can import it. Okay, you can export it. Module.export equals to what? Router. What is this express? What is the router? Just wait for some time. If you want to write this functionality, if you want to write this function, okay, how we can write in the node application? Okay, how we can write by using node skeleton? Node syntax means like this. First of all, you have to get that express framework. Inside the express framework, there is router is there. Inside the router, we can write your functionality with your request method. See this. Okay, write your functionality. Router dot. Okay, get method is there. Post method is there. Put method is there. Delete method is there. All methods are there or not. Based on your requirement, you can use the method, you can write the path. Okay, we'll see that one later. So he exported something. Then only we can import here or not. So can we import it? Where? Okay, my questions router. See, I am using the same naming convention. Okay, you can write anything. X also you can write, no problem at all. But already they are written for two methods, right? I'm using that one only. Same naming convention. Required. What is that? Within the routes folder, my questions is the file or not. Okay, if you observe here, user router is highlighted, this one is commute. Okay, that means what is the difference between this one and this one? Means user router used somewhere, but my questions router you're not used. So that can we check where my user router used? Yes, used here or not. So he used here with this particular path or not. So can we specify the path now? My app.use which path? QUE is my path for which file? Questions router is my file or not? Done. This is simple configuration for my file. Okay, so that this configuration is completed. This one is done. Understand or not? This one is done. Okay, now within the file, you should have to write some functionality or not. Okay, functionality is nothing but one function you have to write. That function contains what? Okay, my questions.js is the file. Inside this, these many functionalities are there. These many functionalities are there. See this. Inside this questions.js, you should have to write the functionalities. Okay, each and every function contains what? Can anyone tell? Function, okay, function path and method. Three things are there. Okay, if you want to write the functionality, function is required. For that function, you have to add one request method. Okay, for that function, you have to add what? You have to add one URL or not. Three things you need. So, if you want to write that syntax, write one function with these three things, how we can write means by using this router. First of all, get the express require express. Okay, so that if you write like this, what it means? I get this express from the node modules. Yes, I get it. Inside the express, one method is the router, so that you can get the router. By using this router only, we are going to write your endpoints, nothing but write your functions and everything. So, write my router dot. First of all, which request method is required? See the syntax. Post is the method. Router dot post is the method. Post is the method. Okay, here, two things are pending. post is completed. Post is nothing but request method is completed. What two things are correct? One is like your path, another one is like function or path. So that my post method take two arguments. One is like your path. Which path? Save question is my path. Save question is my path. The next one is what? You have to write the functionality so that it can take one function as a second argument. That's it. This is your syntax or not to write your functionality. Three things covered or not? Can we check what these three things? One is like request method, another one is like your path, another one is like your method to write the statement. See this: request method, post, covered; path, save questions, covered; to write your functionality, function. All three covered or not? This is your simple skeleton to write your endpoint. So another one. This is the next one. Okay, here, what is the method name? Get is the request method. My URL is get question. So that write it. My router dot get is my method. Already one thing covered. The next one, get questions is my path. Okay, that related functionality you can write within the function. Say this. Okay, three things covered or not? Request method covered, and this is the URL, and this one is my function. Done. Now inside this function only you have to write your functionality or not. Okay, which functionality? General thing. Okay, once you hit this function, which type of functionality you want me to write inside the function? The server side, save question function is there. Okay, what functionality you want me to write to save the question? First up, 10 in 1. Okay, first, my client send the request is nothing but what? Okay, you should have to receive the request or not. Receive the request. If you want to save that questions information within the table, first of all, question data is required, right? The question data coming from client to server as part of request or not. So that take data from request or not. Okay, first you have to receive and then you have to take the data from the request. Once you take the data from the request, if you have the data, where you want me to keep this data? This data you have to insert within the table or not. That means you should have to connect with the database or not. Okay. Establish connection with DB. Establish connection with DB. Once you establish the connection with DB, the next one is what? Perform required operation. Required operations. Perform required operations. The next one is what? Once you perform required operations, the next one is what? Once my operation is completed, either it's like insert operation or it's like a retrieving operation. What is the next one? You should have to tell to my client, right? Hey, your operation, insert operation is completed successfully. Okay, your retrieving operation completed, done. Okay, like this, you have to tell the response back to this guy or not. So what do you have to do? You have to give response back to client or not. Okay, these are the things handled within the server here or not, in the server side function or not. These are the things we have to handle. Receive the request, take the data from the request, establish the connection with the DB, and perform required operations, give the response back to my client or not. These functionalities you have to handle within this particular method. In this case, the method is nothing but this one. Here you have to handle the things, here you have to handle the things or not. Okay, how we can handle, we'll see in tomorrow's class. Okay, thanks guys, thanks for joining.